Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roofing Contractor, Walls and Ceilings, and Building Enclosure. Welcome to our Legal Insight with Trent Cotney, CEO of Cotney Attorneys and Consultants. And also I have with me, joining me today is Hannah Belloli, the Associate Editor of Walls and Ceilings. So Trent, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jill and Hannah, for having me today. I'm really looking forward to talking about the latest issues. We sure have a lot of them.
Yes, there are. But first I want to say congratulations on launching Cotney Capital. And I just wanted to start by asking you, so why Cotney Capital? What are the goals and what do contractors need to know to get involved?
Sure. So I have always been involved kind of behind the scenes working with various companies that are engaged in product development or technology. And it occurred to me that, it'd be a great idea to have a company that was designed exclusively to support those kinds of startups in construction. When I looked out at sort of the landscape of the companies that were providing, private equity or venture capital, they have plenty of experience in the banking realm, but they don't have that experience combined with construction. So what we're going to be able to do is have a very unique incubator program where we get these companies in the mix. They can learn quickly, not just the financial side of things, but also the construction side of things, which we're really excited about.
Well, the list continues of growing of exciting things you've got always going on and up your sleeve there, Trent. But I know that there's going to be, I'm sure we'll always hear more as we move along. But one thing that you did write this week, it was going to be up on the Roofing Contractor website, is kind of breaking down the COVID-19 relief bill. And can you give us some of the highlights and now what?
Sure, absolutely. So this $1.9 trillion bill, stimulus bill from Biden is interesting in that there's a lot of different things that happen here. Not many of them affect construction. Okay, they may affect your personal life, they may affect your tax credits, but there's not a significant impact on construction itself. Okay, a couple things to keep in mind. The first thing is I'm concerned about the spending. Okay, we're already starting to see inflationary pressures with material prices. We talked about that last go around. At some point, you keep printing money, there's a price to pay for that. So that concerns me. The second thing that concerns me is that this bill still didn't really address infrastructure improvement. And that's kind of what I'm looking for construction. So the high points in this bill, there's a $1,400 additional stimulus payment that you can receive. There are very strict requirements on it. Generally speaking, you can only make up to $75,000 a year. There's all these different things, but that's there. It continues the unemployment payments, which is a good thing. There is money that has been additional monies that are distributed to both state and local governments for COVID-19 related type relief, whether it's allowing for virtual communication or upgrading facilities, things of that nature, where there might be some construction capability there. But the big takeaway for me in that whole stimulus plan was no minimum wage, no $15 minimum wage. Okay. And that's significant for construction for a couple of reasons. Now, for our listeners out there, you may be thinking, I already paid all my people more than $15, so it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal because what you're doing is you're raising that bar to that minimum standard. Okay, so let's say your entry level pay is $16, $17. If I'm one of those people, I'm now looking at it and say, well, hey, the standard went way up. I need to go way up as a result. Okay, that's the big issue there, is because it's not just the fact that you've got to pay starting level people 15. You've got to increase everybody across the board because the minimum standard has gone up. Okay, and that's what causes me some concern. Obviously, this is not the end of the minimum wage battle. Okay, you can expect to see more attempts to engage in an increase in the minimum wage, especially as we start talking more about some of the union-related acts and bills that we're starting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Trent, was there a deadline extension for the PPP proposed?
Absolutely. So the extension right now is through March 31st. There is some additional money that has been open for a second round of Paycheck Protection Program funding. This was through the previous stimulus that was provided under the Trump administration, December 20th of 2020. We have heard that some of the initial problems that people were having with getting access to applications and things of that nature has changed a little bit. I do anticipate that if that funding has not been completely used up in that time frame, that you may see some additional extensions with regard to allowing that money continue forward. There's already been some talks of that.
Very good. Hannah?
So Trent, can you break down the price acceleration clause for us?
Sure, absolutely. So, I was looking at some interesting data that came out recently, and it was on the past year. It charted all the key indicators, all the materials that construction uses, regardless of whether it's in the walls and ceiling space or roofing space. And you see every single major component, there's a spike that went like this, okay? Some of that is due to all this money that we're printing, okay? Some of it is due to the increase in things like diesel fuel, okay? But a lot of it is related to delays in COVID-19 shutdowns. So one of the things that we really recommend is that every contractor right now, regardless of whether you're residential, commercial, industrial, I don't care what you're doing, you need to account for price, material increases and shortages in your contract. So one of the things that we really like to see in contracts is a statement that says, in the event that any material line item goes up by more than 5%, I'm entitled to an equitable adjustment of the contract that reflects that increased price. Okay, now I've got to provide you with the cost, the evidence of that, but this is an equitable adjustment. I don't have to get we don't have to go through the formal change order process. It's already accounted for in the contract, and it makes things a lot easier.
So I also want to take this time, Trent, to talk a little bit about the Protecting the Right to Organize, or otherwise known as the PRO Act. Can you give a rundown on what issues that act could tackle, and what is the initial reasoning for this act? What was the problem that people were seeing?
So the PRO Act is a very contentious piece of legislation, okay? And we may have some listeners that are union contractors, and I recognize that. My comments are not pro-union or anti-union. It is just, this is what I'm seeing. So originally, a couple of years ago, the PRO Act originated, and the idea behind it was to make unionization a lot easier. Okay, it cut a lot of the impediments to that, and I'll get into that. But it passed the House a couple of years ago, and now it's resurfaced again. It just passed the House again, I believe, March 9th. Okay, and now we're under an administration with the Biden administration that has been very pro-union. So there is more concern there. This is something that contractors need to pay attention to, okay? And here's why. This PRO Act, and it does a lot of things, okay? It is, as far as legal goes, I could do a 2-hour seminar on it. I know you guys don't want to hear that. So let me hit you with the big points, okay? The first is that it eliminates the state right to work laws. Okay, there's a lot of states out there. I'm in Florida. We're one of them that says that if you've got a union, you have the ability to opt out of that union, and that you don't have to pay union dues. Okay, what this says is that even if you opt out, you still have to pay union dues because we did the collective bargaining to get your wage increase. Okay, that's not good for a lot of states like Texas and Florida that aren't heavy union. Okay, so there could be some potential to have unions come down and potentially do some things there, okay? The next is there's a lot of ways that employers can intervene during the unionization process. One of the things is that they're entitled to have these what are known as captive audience meetings, where they can talk about why you shouldn't unionize, the things about it. The PRO Act eliminates a lot of that, okay? It bans mandatory arbitration agreements. One of the classic things that a lot of employers do, especially union contractors, is they include mandatory arbitration provisions, which means you're going to take it out of court and you're going to put it in a private context. Okay. The great thing about arbitration is a lot of it remains confidential. Okay. And it's more difficult to create class actions and other things. If you have it in court, then it's open for everybody and it becomes a big spectacle. And then, that's problematic. So it bans mandatory arbitration agreements. Here's the key take. I saved the best for last, Hannah, and I saved it because I want you'd be interested in this. Okay. So it changed the independent contractor classification. Now, Jill, you've heard me harp on this for a while now. Every time we talk, I'm talking about this. The listeners are probably like, oh God, he's talking about, no, trust me, this is really important, okay? The independent contractor classification affects every single one of our listeners that uses subcontract labor, that has a 1099 sales force, that uses any kind of sub whatsoever, okay? What the PRO Act is going to do is move to the California ABC test. Now, I shouldn't have to tell you how difficult that's going to be for employers because it has California in the front of it. So you know that it's not going to be employer favorable, right? So there's a few things here that they really look for. Okay, they want to see whether or not the individual is free from control and direction. They want to see if the services are performed outside the usual course of the business of the employer, which is almost impossible if you're engaging in sub labor. And 3, the individual is customarily engaged in an independent business, meaning they market for themselves, they have their own website, all that kind of stuff. So that is the most concerning thing. You know, I don't anticipate that if for some reason this were to pass, and that's an if, okay, I don't anticipate, you know, states that are not heavy union all of a sudden becoming unionized. Okay, it takes a lot to do that, even with this act.
Yeah.
What concerns me, though, is that this is the start of the proliferation of this California ABC test, which, if it is adopted by the Department of Labor, and there's been some discussion about that, it could apply to every single contractor, regardless of whether you're union or not. So this is something, if you're listening to this, pay attention to the PRO Act. The PRO Act keeps me up at night. So that's a message that I want to send to you guys.
So on that same vein, Trent, we have a quote here from the Associated General Contractors of America's Chief Executive Officer, Stephen E. Sander. And after the House passed or voted in favor of the passage of the PRO Act, he said, the broader impact of the PRO Act, should it be enacted, is a new era of labor unrest that'll stifle future economic activity and job growth. Instead of helping deliver higher wages and better benefits, the PRO Act will provide labor uncertainty, stagnant economic growth, and diminished entrepreneurial opportunity. So, as you said, the PRO Act is something that's keeping you up at night. So you do think that this is something that contractors should be fearing? And what are they to do about this? Is there really anything they can do other than just wait around and see if it's going to be passed?
Yeah, great question, Hannah. So yeah, absolutely. On behalf of the contractors that I represent and the contractors that I'm engaged in the industry, again, regardless of industry, I don't think this is beneficial for the construction industry. Okay, it may be beneficial for unions and unionization, but that's a different story. So what I would recommend is get to know your federal representatives and senators, your U.S. representatives and senators. And for the roofing contractors listening, there's no better time than, next week where we have roofing day, where you're going to be in front of them. I just got my list. I've got 3 one day to another. So they're going to hear from me whether they want to or not. And that's the idea is make sure your voice is heard. Your voice counts. This is something that everybody needs to know about.
Yeah, definitely. So in your conversations with contractors regarding the PRO Act, has there been any contractors who are heavily in favor of this? Do they see any benefits coming from this for them?
No.
Wow.
No, because every single one of them are employers, right?
Yeah.
And this favors unions and the employees. So it's not that, look, I'm sure that there are nuggets of goodness within the PRO Act. Okay. It's not horrific legislation from start to finish, but a lot of it is, and a lot of it is very dangerous for employers in the construction industry. It's something, especially when you start talking about changing that independent classification. And the reason they want to do that is they want to be able to not only go to you, but to also go to your subs and unionize them, right? So that if they can show that they're really just part of you, then that's going to open up the floodgates. So yeah, if I have a vote, my vote is do not support it, because I think it is bad for employers within the construction industry.
Yeah. Are there any immediate changes that we would see within the construction industry? I know that you said to unionize everything would take a while, but are there things that would change almost drastically if this act were to be passed?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in Chicago, Northeast, a lot of different states that are heavy union, Pennsylvania, Michigan, different states that have a big union presence, the bargaining has gone from this to this, meaning that the amount of time that you have to collect a bargain, a lot of your strategic ability to negotiate decreases dramatically and increases the power of unions under this act. So that is something that would have almost an immediate effect once the act becomes law. Other stuff, you're going to see a little bit more trickle down. You may see some infiltration by unions into areas where they haven't been before because of this. And again, I think that what the Biden administration will do, and the ABC test is a great example of this, is if they can't get it, if they can't run up the center and get it, they're going to go around the flank and get it. Okay, so watch out for that minimum wage. It's going to come up again. We haven't seen the end of that. Okay, but I think the Biden administration realized they need to get the stimulus out. It's too highly contentious, and they move forward with it. Same with the ABC test. You may see in the PRO Act. PRO Act may or may not work. I know there is opposition to it, but you're going to start seeing this push, and eventually the Department of Labor may adopt it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Trent, for your insight on the PRO Act. It's appreciated. I know contractors I'm sure there are some of them that are staying up at night the same way you are with what's going to happen to my business if this passes. So, Jill, any final thoughts or questions?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and bring my anxiety level down now that you've explained. Let's go back and talk about roofing day, since you just mentioned that for those in the roofing industry. I got my list this morning as well, Trent. So I'm excited for the meetings that I have set up for roofing day. But what are the key issues that the roofing industry will be bringing to Capitol Hill?
Yeah, so the one that I'm most interested in is the immigration issue, and to me that is something where I think we have the ability as an industry to gain the most traction. From my perspective, the previous administration wasn't really open to the type of immigration reform that would have been needed to allow us to get a legal workforce. Now, everybody listening to this, we all want to hire and employ a legal workforce. We're not trying to get around immigration laws. We're not trying to, employ illegals. The key is that there has to be a vehicle that allows us to either get temporary labor in or to get temporary labor in and then allow us to convert to citizenship, right? So I think this is a favorable administration for that. And I think now is the time for us to make some big gains there. The current setup that we have in place, it does not work. So of all the things that we have to discuss, that's the one that I think we stand the most chance of getting some favorable reform on.
Very good. And also, Rick D'Amato just sent me a text and said he was having some technical difficulties. He was asking about, is there going to be support for the Workforce for Expanding Economy Act and the legislation following the TPS and DACA? Any insight on that, Trent?
Yeah, so I think there might be. And what's interesting is that the proposed Biden immigration changes, we've seen what the potential plan is, and it's sweeping. So we have already seen some action done through executive order, right? Basically, reversing Trump's orders was action, right? So I anticipate that what you're going to see is a comprehensive bill that reflects this new sea change in how immigration should be done. But you're also going to see a lot of executive orders that may be death by a thousand cuts as well. So I do think that there is the possibility for expanding things like TPS and H-2B. Right now, H-2B just does not, it doesn't work very well for construction. There's 66,000 positions that everybody is trying to get, restaurant worker, farmer, everybody. There's not enough. There's not enough mass for people to be able to actually get the employees they need. So I do think that there is going to be some. It's going to ramp up over the next few months, and I would absolutely anticipate that you're going to see a very large, comprehensive bill that deals with immigration. And I think it'll probably go through. There's going to be some horse trading, as there always is with politicians, but now is the time.
Yes, well, I know that for all those, everybody watching, just so, because I know we've got some walls and ceilings listeners as well. Roofing Day is something that the National Roofing Contractors Association has been spearheading for the last, is this the fourth year?
Mm-hmm.
There's been enough now that I'm forgetting how many years it's been. But if anybody wants any information, please go to nrca.net, because you can even get involved, whether you want to just help with the issues happening, whether it's roofing or on the wall and ceiling side. It'll be great to have as many people involved as we can. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that being said, Trent, what else is making your phone ring this week?
I tell you, it's been a busy week. I think there's a lot of optimism out there, Jill, and I think that as the vaccines continue to roll out, as the rhetoric has changed a little bit, people are starting to say, okay, are we returning to semi-abnormal now? And I think that is being reflected in the industry. The data that I've seen recently has suggested that there's a lot of positive feelings about what the industry is going to look like. Backlog has increased dramatically. So I think that construction will remain strong through 2021. That is something that I think we're going to need going into 2022. So that's a good thing. What else I would say? There has been some concern about OSHA. I'm starting to get a lot more phone calls that are concerned about what is going on up at Capitol Hill with regard to OSHA. And I can tell you that there will more than likely be an emergency temporary standard here for COVID-19 that will come out here probably within the next month. There's going to be elevated enforcement, elevated inspection. This is across all trades, all contractors, so be aware of it. But don't let that diminish the positive outlook, because I do think that we've already had a lot of training and understanding of how to be safe on these job sites. Mm-hmm. So I'm optimistic that whatever the standard is, contractors, trades will be able to adapt and figure it out.
Yeah, I did see that you posted on your LinkedIn page, Trent, that how OSHA has launched a COVID National Emphasis Program. Mm-hmm. And is that the main thing that contractors need to is there any, I guess, is there more?
The iceberg. So OSHA really got it bad last year. They did not look very well during COVID because they didn't do a lot, right? There was a couple of guidelines that came out, no significant federal enforcement. A lot of state plans took their own, plans and added COVID-19 specific emergency temporary standards. Did a lot of enforcement. We had a lot of citations in California and Washington, Oregon, and Michigan, any place that's got state plans. But I think this National Emphasis Program is the start. You will see an emergency temporary standard that will become a final infectious disease standard. And the word, as soon as Biden has filled in the rank and file within the upper echelon of OSHA, the orders will go out, and you can absolutely anticipate there will be more inspections and more citations this year, especially as it relates to COVID-19.
Well, Trent, as always, thank you so much for your insight. We always appreciate your time and all the insight that you have for contractors. If anybody has any questions for Trent, you can reach him at cotneycl.com. And also, for everybody who's watching, make sure you check out roofingcontractor.com. We've got a new redesign on our website. You can also reach us at wconline.com. And everyone, please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.